Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I am here to do my fall TBR. Alright guys, I have not been doing great on my seasonal TBRs. I think that in summer I finished 3 out of 6, and in spring I might have only finished 2 out of 6. So hopefully for the fall season we do a little bit better. But essentially for September, October, and November, I have selected 6 books that I would like to read within that time period. I would say that for me, fall is definitely the most aesthetic month. It's really the month where I am more drawn to books that are really fall vibes, while every other month I feel like I can read just about any vibe of story. Right, so my sister just FaceTimed me because she's coming down to visit today, and I'm trying to be like, what was I saying? What was I saying? I have no idea, but essentially we have 6 books today that I will be talking through. These are 6 books that I would really like to get to in the next 3 months. I feel like in February there's always a lot of books I want to read, so it's really kind of hard for me to like choose just 6, but these are always 6 books that are physically on my TBR, and we will see how I do this time. I'm always going into them optimistic, but my success rate is relatively low, to be honest. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the first of the 6 books. Up first, we have one of the books that I still need to read for my 2024 bingo board, and that is going to be A Deadly Education by Naomi Novik. This is the first book in a trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I think the trilogy is now completed, and it is kind of like a magical school, dark academia vibes. I will admit, for me, this is leaning slightly more winter vibes. However, because I want to finish this by the end of the year, I don't want to put it on my winter TBR because that means I would have to get to it in December. And knowing my TBR game, I just want to make sure I give myself as much time as possible to read this book. In this book, we are following a young woman who seems to have, I think, slightly darker magical abilities. Because of this, she likes to keep to herself, and she is attending a high school where a lot of teens go to kind of improve their magical abilities, because in this world there are deadly monsters that are attracted to magic, and attending the school will improve your ability to survive out in the real world. If there is any movement of the camera, it is because my kitten has decided that he needs to play right there. But that being said, the school is incredibly deadly. It is surrounded by a protection spell. However, because how much magic is present at the school, it attracts a lot of monsters, and the final goal or the final test of the school is to actually get out of the school, to go through this hallway that is filled to the brim with monsters. So it is better to make alliances, which our character is not really doing until one day she saves a young man's life, and he seems slightly suspicious of her magic. However, because she saved him, he kind of sticks around and she can't quite shake him. So I'm hoping that I really enjoy this book. I have loved Naomi Novik's other 2 books that I've read by her, which is Spinning Silver and Uprooted. This series has been a bit hit and miss with the general public. Some people seem to really love it. Some people seem to struggle with it a little bit, especially the writing style. But I'm hoping, since I've enjoyed her work in the past, that this will work for me. Up next, we have The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. This is a book that I've been wanting to read for quite a while. I'm actually quite fond of sci-fi, horror, and thrillers, and that is exactly what this book is. This book seems to have a bit of an isolated setting where we are following a bit of an unreliable narrator who is also in contact with only one person who she feels she can't really trust. Hello. So it seems our main character has lied a bit on her resume to get a job where she goes to a uninhabited planet, I believe, to kind of test the minerals and whatnot, possibly to see if it can be used or maybe inhabited. And it is just her and the person in her headphone. But it seems that this person knows some things about our character's past that she does not want her to know. And so things get a little intense from there. Other than that, I don't really know what else is happening in this book, but that's really all that I need to know. I'm hoping that it is high intensity and fast paced and that I enjoy it like a lot of people seem to, especially because I believe that this author recently came out with a new book that sounds very intriguing as well. The next two books are actually a short story collections. I feel like I often say I don't like novellas, I don't really like short stories. However, when it comes to horror and thriller, I do enjoy short story collections a little bit more than other genres. And so I've gone ahead and taken the two short story collections that I have within this genre and put them on this list. The first being Out There Screaming, which is edited by Jordan Peele, and this is the director and creator of Get Out, Us, and Nope. I haven't watched Us yet, but I've watched the other two movies and enjoyed them. And this is a collection of a black horror. Now, I am a little nervous to go into it because since this has come out, I haven't heard like the greatest things about it, and I think some people mentioned that it's not very horror forward and that it seems to be more fantasy sci-fi forward. You're shaking again, so sorry about that. And I'm hoping that with me going in with the expectation that it might be more forward in other genres will help me from being disappointed. But also sometimes I take people saying that black horror isn't really horror with a grain of salt, because the same happened to When No One Is Watching. Everyone said that that wasn't like a real horror, a real thriller, but it is for the black community, and so it's not really up to white people to judge what is black horror and what isn't. So we will see what I think of the story. I'm excited to read it and hopefully I enjoy it more than other people have. The second short story collection is going to be Never a Whistle at Night, and this is edited by Sean Hawk and Theodore Van Alst Jr. And this is a collection of short stories by Indigenous authors. I am behind on my goal of reading 5 books by Indigenous authors. I have finally finished my first book, so you know, now that the ball is going, we want it to keep going. And I have heard really good things about this short story collection. In fact, some people say that it is quite scary, so I'm actually a little bit nervous to get into it, but this cover is absolutely stunning. As far as I know, these are just different takes on the legends that if you whistle at night, something will come. And I'm interested to see how each of these different authors tackle that story, and hopefully I find some new Indigenous authors who have full-length novels that I can check out as well. All right, and the last 2 books on this list are actually books that I just bought last week. I went on a bit of a shopping spree at a Powell's bookstore, so I will be having a book haul coming up here in the next week or 2, hopefully. And these are 2 books that I am definitely excited to get to sooner rather than later. The first being A God Killer by Hannah Canner. This is admittedly a book that I was not interested in, like at all, because I thought it was just gonna be like a fantasy romance, a straight fantasy romance. And while I do enjoy those once in a blue moon, I feel like they're a little overdone, and often because they're so popular and overdone, sometimes they're not like the best quality. And so I was like, do I really need to get another one of those? Especially because I think this one might be YA. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, the thing is, I kind of knew that this wasn't a book I was interested in until people actually started talking about it in more detail, and that the story is actually very queer and has a ton of different forms of disability representation. And also, everyone was loving this book and everyone has been loving the second book either. So I was like, okay, so I obviously misjudged this book and I would actually love to read it. And all I know is that we have a woman, or a young woman, who is hunting gods. It's her job to kill them, and one day she comes across a god that has tied itself to the life of a young child, so she can't really just kill it, and so they have to go about saving this young child and killing this god in a more complicated manner. So I'm excited. It is a relatively short book, so that is exciting. Sometimes fantasies, they just be doing too much. So hopefully I love it as much as everyone else does. And the final book on here is another shorty. In fact, it is a novella. Yes, Miss I don't like short stories, I don't like novellas has put 2 short story collections and a novella on her fall TBR. Who knows who I am anymore, but that is going to be At Night All Blood is Black by David Diop. And this is a book that I heard about from Jess on YouTube, and it really intrigued me. So when I saw it at Powell's, I was like, you're coming home with me. This is literally under 150 pages long, and it is about a Black serial killer who is part of the French army during World War II, which is literally a concept that I have never heard about in any capacity. Like, I've never read about a Black serial killer. I'm not even sure if I've ever read a book about World War I, because everyone seems to just be writing about World War II, and I certainly haven't read about a serial killer in the French army who loses a comrade and just kind of loses everything else, including his mind, in a way. So I am really intrigued by this story and will definitely be prioritizing it this next season. All right, guys, so these are the 6 books that I am putting on my fall TBR. Fingers crossed I get to all of them, because all of these are books that I have either wanted to read for a while or have recently gotten my hands on and really want to prioritize. I would love to know if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I would also love to know what books you are hoping to read this spooky season. As always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!